I think I speak on behalf of at least Indulekha and I, but I'm also taking the liberty to speak on behalf of everybody that this was one thing that we were missing, Vaishnav Sangha, and it's very, very kind for Avinash and Rita Mataji to host the first program of the year. And somehow any festival, any celebration, whether it is Vaishnav or not, it feels incomplete without our family. So I'm grateful to be back in the Association of Devotees. Also wanted to speak a little bit about since this is it's perhaps a little late, but wanted to speak a little bit on the topic of New Year resolutions. So this is the time when people make resolutions, and also the time when people break resolutions. So I wanted to have a little bit of discussion on that. So resolution per se is something that we see a lot in the scriptures. We see devotees being glorified for the resolutions. Does any name come to mind of devotees who made very, very strong resolutions, famous resolutions? Bhishma, right? In fact, he got the name Bhishma because of that. He made this resolution of never ascending to the throne, being celibate, never entering the Grahastha ashram. Another example of somebody who made commendable resolutions.
Arjun and Bhim.
Arjun. Arjun during the battle, he took so many vows that by sunset I will kill Jayadratha. And if I don't kill Jayadratha, what will I do?
Enter fire.
I'll enter into fire. And Dwarka, the Brahman who had lost his child, he came to Arjun, he said, protect my child. Arjun said his next unborn child. Because every time his wife would have a child, the child would die. And he said, I'll protect your child. And if your child dies, what will I do? I will enter into fire. So, and he did not just make the resolutions. He was, at least in the second case, he failed. So he was fully prepared to enter into fire. Another devotee who is famous for resolution is Dhruva Maharaj. That Dhruva, when he was only 5 years old, he faced this adversity in life where he was being rejected by his own father. So Dhruva was the son of Maharaj Uttanapad, who was the ruler of the world. Maharaj Uttanapad was the son of Swayambhavu Manu. And Swayambhavu Manu had Priyavrata as the eldest son, but he refused to take because he wanted to lead a life of renunciation. So Maharaj Uttanapad he was the younger brother, but he took that role on. And he was initially married to Suniti, and he had Dhruva Maharaj. And then he married Suruchi, and he had Uttam. And there was one time when he rejected Dhruva, more so his stepmother. And Dhruva, being a Kshatriya, he made this promise to himself that he would have a kingdom that is bigger than his father's kingdom, Maharaj Uttanpad's kingdom, bigger than his grandfather's kingdom, which is the kingdom of Swayambhavu Manu, bigger than his great-grandfather's kingdom. His great-grandfather is Lord Brahma. So he's 5 years old, but he definitely didn't think small. He thought big. So, and that was his resolution. And then Narad Muni tries to dissuade him, saying that you're a young boy and these things happen, so don't worry about it. But Dhruva was fixed, And he said, I made this resolution and I'm going to follow through. And then he did follow through. So he performed severe austerities. And after 6 months, Lord Vishnu personally came to him to give him the benediction that he was seeking for. So, generally speaking, if not universally, resolutions are for something that we want to improve in our lives. And even if they are completely materialistic resolutions, but nobody will resolve that this year onwards I will have bad health and I will not exercise and I will lose all my money. Nobody will make that. Nobody in the right mind will make that resolutions. So the dynamics behind the resolution is the interplay between prayas and shreyas. So when we go through life, there are two things that that are constantly competing for our attention. I'm sorry, you're in my blind spot over here. So that's okay. I can move it back. Yeah, I see that. That's okay. So there are two things in our lives that are generally competing for our attention. There is prayas and shreyas. So prayas is things that are that we think are good for us. Shreyas are things that are good for us. So if I have a sweet tooth, then sweets are prayas. And not eating sweets is shreyas. So sweets may be, we may think that sweets are good for us, but giving up sweets is actually that is good for us. So there is this, when we take to spiritual life, there is this interplay between prayas and shreyas. So there are so many things that we have to forego that we may think are good for us. All of us want to sleep a little late in the morning, get up when it's comfortable, or until it's absolutely needed. And when we take to spirituality, we understand that getting up in the morning and chanting our rounds in the morning, it's the best time for us to do. So we give up something in order to get something. So we give up some prayers in order to get some shreyas. So that's how resolutions typically work. Now, what I wanted to discuss a little bit collectively, hear from you also, is what do you think would make a resolution work? So I'm not going to discuss over here what would be a good resolution to make, because we're in the association of devotees. So we know that even amongst people who are non-devotees, the resolutions are good. Nobody makes bad resolution. Amongst devotees, we can be doubly sure that the resolution will be something that will either directly or indirectly help them in their spiritual life. So let's take that as a given, that we will make good resolutions. But what would you think are some things that would make the resolutions durable? Because the biggest challenge, depending on how old we are, we have seen many New Years come and go and many resolutions come and go. So what is something that we would like to, that we think would make the resolutions endurable, that will stay with us for, hopefully for the rest of the year, but for as long as possible? Thoughts or personal experiences?
So, commitment is something definitely which is the basic. But As per me, probably the realization that the resolution I'm doing is going to benefit me or to the society at large, that's probably is a better thing than commitment, because commitment will automatically come once I realize this is going to help me or in my spiritual life or whatever it is. For what reason I am taking that resolution, is going to benefit me and to the society at large.
Okay, okay, very good. Thank you, Prabhu. Any other thoughts? Seema?
I think you should aim high but start slow. So, one step at a time. It's always like that. Whatever the resolution could be, it could be spiritual or it could be just like a small thing like going to the temple once a week. But, you have to at least go to the temple once a week. And then only you can pray for once a day and then hopefully get up for Mangal Aarti one day. So if you just directly say that, okay, I'm just going to, go run to the temple every day, you may just tire yourself out even before you complete the week, forget the year. So aim high but start slow.
Okay. That's good. Thank you.
Patience is very important, whether it's spiritual or material solution. So if we have to be patient, so it will work for long term.
Patience in terms of seeing the results of the resolution fructify. Be realistically patient. Thank you. It's a good point. Okay. Any other thoughts? Mataji?
I think finding out something that I'm lacking. So many times it happens, suppose I'm very unpunctual. I know, but it's okay. I used to take it granted. Once I realize, like, it's mine, the first point, then ask person Mataji, a little bit I can progress. But maybe it's most of the people, finding own fault and realizing, then trying to improve is a big thing. Once mine is set, like, yeah, this is my first point, I can improve. Then maybe it would improve that.
Good. Thank you.
Sometimes associating with people who have been able to achieve their resolutions. Sometimes.
Taking inspiration from them, exchanging notes. Even people who have failed in the resolution, I think that's also useful. At least, they say the journey is more important.
Yeah.
Why they succeeded, why they failed. Thanks.
Do not get discouraged.
Have a positive
Do not
attitude.
get
Have a
positive attitude.
Attitude is very, very important. Very important. I see. Shivani.
So make resolutions which you can quantify, not pray more.
Don't just say that. I'll become a pure devotee by the end of the year. Make it quantifiable.
At least if you are saying I'll read more than how much you'll read every year. Something which you can quantify for yourself.
Yeah. Good, huh?
So sometimes reflection from your past, from experience, that can make a lot of impact on your future resolution.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point. So Prabhu is saying that self-reflection, right?
Self-reflection and also how does it impact others? When you have resolution yourself, it's not you, but how others see you and how you reflect, how you make that. That gives you kind of a different realization within from the past experience.
Okay. Spoken like one who's been married for many years.
Today only we got some message, I don't know, maybe an next 2% that Bhakti Swami Maharaj mentioned that every time you should reflect yourself. Then you
Yeah. And that's one of my personal favorites also. I can't emphasize enough on the importance of reflection. That introspection, reflection, that's what sets humans apart from everybody else, and that's what sets aspiring transcendentalists apart from the rest. The ability to constantly introspect in a positive way. Okay. So
Ask your spouse to help you.
ask us.
Very practical.
Yeah. And then reciprocate also. And then help your spouse also, you know.
I know.
But I think that's a very important point, Prabhu. Not only wife or spouse, in fact, when we take a collective resolution and when we go as a group or as a team towards that journey, it's become much easier. So everybody takes a resolution, let's say from tomorrow we'll do Bhagavatam, one chapter.
Correct.
If we do it collectively, it will happen.
It happens.
Someone singular,
Yeah.
doing it alone.
Like I know as a group we have made 2 resolutions, and like one is the Japa Sang in the morning, and the second is the Tuesday, and it's mostly because of the collective energy. You know, sometimes the individual would say, doesn't work for me or whatever, but then the collective energy carries it through. So it's a good point. So, Rajesh, Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhu, I think it also has to be in line with who you are and then who you are trying to be when you are taking a resolution. So, if I am thinking or walking in one direction, either it's in that direction if it's a positive direction. But let's say I want to change radically the way I've been leading my life, then as Seema was saying, slow, very important. Otherwise, endurability will be in question in near future. So it has to come from within and a lot of introspection that where am I and where am I trying to be, little bit that judgment to help you practice it.
So thank you all. Very, very good points, very practical points made by people who obviously are very, very experienced resolution makers. And also, who are obviously do it with a fair amount of gravity. So I was listening to this lecture on resolution, and there was a very nice kind of an analogy given by the speaker that the speaker is from India. So in India, in the bathrooms, in the floor, they have like a, I don't know what's it called, but it's for the water. Like if you clean the floor, the water goes out from there, right? It's a drain. Right? And here they don't have it, but in India they have it. And then the floor is slightly tilted in the way that whichever way you put the water, it goes into that drain. So he was making this point. He was saying that we all have some basic inclination, and the nature of the inclination, our personal inclination, is that it funnels our desires into a particular direction naturally. And the fact that we have a body and we're conditioned, most of our natural desires are for enjoying with the 3 modes. And that's how the floor is tilted. All the water that comes in, we don't even have to make an effort. It naturally goes into that area. So when we become aspiring spiritualists, then we are kind of making another hole in the floor where the water needs to go. But just making the hole doesn't mean the water will go there. You make a hole over there, you put the water, so the floor is inclined in that particular direction. The water will still go in that particular hole. So this process of resolution is to change the inclination. That once the inclination is changed, then effortlessly all our attention will move into our spiritual conception. Just like right now, effortlessly, all our attention goes into the material conception. We don't have to coach our minds to say that, now let us, whatever enjoyment that works for us, now let us do that. We naturally do that. So he talks about three aspects of resolutions that would make them effective. And interestingly, they've all been spoken over here. The first is conviction. That whatever we are resolving, we should be convinced that it is something that is good for us and something that we want to do. So everything begins with our conviction. Unless we are convinced that this is the right thing to do, the resolution is what do they say, dead on arrival. That it never had a chance to fructify, and that conviction, at least when we are looking for shreyas, when we are looking for spiritual benefit, that conviction comes by the reading of Prabhupada's books, by the reading of scriptures, because the birthplace for conviction is our intelligence. It is our intelligence through which we develop this conviction that this is the right thing to do. We may be somebody may be trying to get a certain job, and in order to get that job, they may have to study hard. It's probably not the most the best way for them to spend their time. But still, they will get up in the morning, they will study in the evenings, over the weekends. They could be enjoying, they could be watching movies or hanging out with friends. But the reason they do that is that in their mind, they have this conviction that this is the right thing to do. So, sacrificing this prayers for this shreyas is the right way to go. And we all have personal experience with that. The reason we are all over here, we are here, displaying a certain amount of success in our lives, is that at several points in our lives, we have actually deliberately sacrificed the prayers for shreyas. Whether it is when we were studying, when others could have been playing, whether it was in taking care of our health, whether it is in steering clear of sinful activities. We have at different points of time in our lives made this very deliberate distinction that I will let go of this for this benefit. Similarly, when we are developing taking resolutions for making spiritual advancements, first thing is we need to have conviction. We need to be convinced that this is the right thing to do. Otherwise, we are basically wasting our time, and we're wasting the time of the conviction. We're wasting both the times. Some other points in terms of the building of the conviction, and this point was also brought up, is to consult with people who are like-minded. That when we are dealing with things that are in the transcendental realm, especially with things that there is not a lot of readily available information. Right? You want to lose weight, you don't have to really, all you have to do is consult with Google Baba, and he will give you all the information, how to lose weight, and then there are so many health, experts and so many people. So that the whole ecosystem, the infrastructure is already there. But you say that I need to increase my affinity to chanting, something like that, right? It's a small, even if you Google it, you might probably get wrong results out of it. And even if you get a book, you might not get complete realizations. So important to share your resolution, sound it off somebody, get the other person to share their own realization. So that is one part, which is building conviction. The second part, and again building on the analogy of the floor, that ideally speaking, what you would like is the inclination of the floor to change in a way that the water goes to the new sink point that you have created. But that is difficult to do. So until that happens, what do you do? So think of it in a practical way, that you have a floor with an inclination in a particular direction, and there is a sinkhole, the water is going there. You put another sink bowl which is at an elevated point. Now you want the water to go in over there. So what do? So you block the other one. What else do you do?
You have to sweep up.
Sweep up. So you do these two things, right? So one thing is that you. So what do? We follow the regulative principles. The regulative principle is a way for us to try and block that. If you just block it, then you'll get a lot of water. No, it's not the best thing to do. So what do? Then you sweep. You direct the water to the new position that you have. So what we do is sadhana vedi bhakti. Right? We may not have a natural inclination, but we put our energy behind it. Like when you're sweeping up, it's external energy that you're putting in to change the flow of the water against the natural course. The natural course of our desires, of our attention right now is in one particular direction. Even if you have blocked it, still our desires are going in that direction, and they're stagnating over there. So they're basically stagnant water would attract all kinds of unhygienic things. So you need to sweep the water away. So we do sadhana vedi bhakti. So by sadhana vedi bhakti, what we do is, even though we don't have spontaneous desires, but we follow the process, and through the process we are making sure that these new pathways are being created. That as we repeatedly go ahead sweeping the water up, the inclination is also changing. That the stronger our sadhana vedi is, the stronger the sweeping force is, the more rapidly the inclination is changing. And the third thing that we do is, because ultimately the whole reason we are doing all that, it may start from a theoretical conception, but it has to be experiential. So then ultimately what we do is that we look for where is it that we are getting our enjoyment from. Because it's all about anand, it's all about happiness. The initial flow of a desire is to seek happiness. When we make resolutions and we are trying to set up a new point for our desires, the underlying goal is still the same. It is enjoyment. So when we are doing all this, we need to find what is it that makes us happiest. For some people it is kirtan. For some people it is serving other devotees. For some people it is deity worship. For some people it is cooking. For some people it is going out and distributing books. And there are infinite ways in which, many more ways. We think that in material world there are ways to enjoy. In spiritual endeavor, there are infinitely more ways for us to enjoy. But it is important that the sadhana, the Vedi bhakti that we are doing, it should not become a burden on us. Now we are recognizing the fact that we are going against our natural inclination. So there is energy, there is effort going on, but we should also experience the rasa out of it. And what is the question for you? What is the most easily discernible rasa that comes out of when we take to spiritual endeavor? Easily discernible means that very quickly, very apparently, without a lot of effort. Eating prasadam. I didn't think about it, but you're right. What else? You feel at peace, feeling of peace. That is very discernible. What else?
The association.
The association. So Vaishnava Sangha, that becomes, so almost as soon as we start into our spiritual endeavor, it's very, very important for us to not only establish association, but to establish association that is nurturing to our desires and needs. And Prabhu was sharing with me once how, if you allow me to share your realizations, that how your whole conception for spirituality changed because of the association that you got in Chowpatty, the devotees that you were associating with. And I think each one of us can attest to that also, that as we develop this mood of just wanting to make spiritual advancements, the nectar of association, it becomes sweeter and sweeter. And Krishna gives that to us. Okay. And I think it's gone. Okay. So and Krishna gives that to us right away. He gives us this. When Dhruv Maharaj was heading to the forest, who does he run into? Narada. Right? And so many times we see that when Krishna is kind on a person, he sends an opportunity for good association their way. Kayadu was being kidnapped by Indra, and Krishna sends Narad Muni there. Prahlad Maharaj, he had bad association in the Gurukul, and what did he do? He preached and made it favorable association. People in the sons of the demons in the Gurukul, they started chanting and doing Harinam. So these three things: developing a conviction, we develop a conviction through the study of the scriptures, then following the process, sadhana, Vedi, bhakti, of which chanting is the most potent. So studying the scriptures, taking to the chanting of the holy name, and third is experiencing the sweetness, which is most manifest in the association of devotees. So when we built our association on these three foundations, then more likely than not, we will succeed. And the art of making resolutions, of course, like Seema said, that they should be practical. So they have this acronym for goals. They call them SMART goals. So they should be specific, and they should be measurable, and they should be achievable. They should be relevant. They should be relevant, and they should be time bound. Right. So and we can apply that. They should be time bound. So you should not say that in this lifetime I will read Bhagavad Gita. It should be more like, that I will, or say that I will read Bhagavad Gita. It should be like, specific. I will read one chapter of Bhagavad Gita every month, and the relevance is obviously there, and the time bound should be, that every month I will read it.
Shivani was saying the same thing.
Like Shivani was saying, right? So that aspect of making resolutions that are practically relevant and achievable, and they are triangulated. So triangulated in the sense that it's not just me and the resolution, it's me and my devotee friends and the resolution. So many times, not many times, I can assure you, all the time, whatever resolution we make, somebody else is making the resolution also. And one of the bases of Vaishnava sangha is to support one another. So creating support groups, like we would like to read a chapter of Bhagavad Gita in a month, and let's help each other read. So maybe we'll pick a time and we will read, or I'd like to chant a few extra rounds. Let's get together and chant. So it's not just me by myself, but it is. And whenever there is Vaishnava Sangh, the most important thing that comes with Vaishnava Sangh is Vaishnava mercy. That's a very important component. So when you tell your resolution to somebody else, then that person says, I think it's a good, even if he's not there to actively be there with you, but just the fact that he says, Prabhu, I think you will achieve it, Krishna is listening to that. There, just in that saying, there is benedictions that is coming from Krishna to to help us in our journey. So I'll stop here, see if there's any follow-up questions. How are we doing with time? You have a few minutes? Okay.
What's the resolution?
So do we have any follow-up quick comments or questions?
I have one question, sir.
Avinash?
Prabhuji, I know resolution is nothing but a rat race, sometimes, but a lifetime comes in your life and you say, enough is enough. Now I'm going to take it easy. When the guy gets 80, 90 years old, they go, So you say, whatever I can do, fine, otherwise it's okay.
That's a resolution.
You do that all the time, right? That's why people are retiring.
Yes. The interesting thing is, if you look at the etymology of resolution, so resolution is resolution. So it's basically problems that have been solved in your life that have appeared again. And now you're saying, now no more of this. So from a more holistic perspective, resolutions are, they result in improvements, but they're actually solving real problems. And real problems are there, whether you're 60 or 16, real problems are there. If you're introspective about it, you will recognize it. That Prabhupada will say that the sign of a first-class person, he sees a problem and he tries to solve it, right? The sign of a 10th-class person is he sees a problem and he ignores it, right? So as long as we have intelligence, as long as we have the ability to discern, we'll be able to see this problem, right? And the desire is, so it's not the resolution have to be only on the 1st of January. It's an ongoing kind.
It's ongoing.
Yeah, but you make a good point. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts?
I have a question for you.
Very simple.
Does having a guru make it easier?
How
does it influence resolutions?
Definitely, having a guide, a spiritual guide, definitely makes it much easier. In two ways. One is that the person is able to help you in your resolutions from a more mystical perspective. I was talking about the whole concept of mercy. That even when you're associating with devotees, when you share your resolutions, that mercy becomes there. More so with your guru. When you share a resolution with the guru, and if they're relevant resolutions, then definitely that mercy will be there. Also in terms of guidance, is the resolution actually Shreyas or Preyas?
Right.
Also from our end, then there is more accountability, because there's the understanding as well as a little bit of a tinge of fear that if I don't do this, then it's I'm doing something wrong, and I've promised, made a promise, taken a vow, whatever. So that sense of accountability is really, it goes into your psyche and in your heart and mind, and makes it easier.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Prabhu, I was just thinking, to initiate any resolution, I feel like the fearness is really important. I mean, for anybody, even though for our kids, if you go to school and they study because of the fear. For any kind of initiation, the same thing for any spirituality or any resolution which we're trying to make. I think once the fear will get into there, then that is the first step to go for it.
That is the point. It's a good point. It's a bit of a pull and a push. So the push is the fear that I need to start, and the push and the pull is the goal at the end of the rainbow. That if I do this, then I will achieve this. And when you're starting, then the goal is at a far distant place. So maybe the pull is weak. The push needs to be strong. And that's why a lot of the scriptures, they paint a very, they paint a very dismal picture of the material world. Dukhalayam, Ashashvatam. Krishna says that from the highest planet to the lowest planet, this is just a place of misery where the only thing that is happening is repeated birth and death. Even if you go to the planets of the demigods, all that you get is misery. And then you might think that, the material world is created by Krishna. Why is he painting such a miserable picture? He's trying to give us that push. And then he, right after that he says, but there is another place where there is no birth, there is no death, there is no misery. Where once you come, you never go back. He's also showing us the gold at the end of the rainbow. So thank you. It's a good point. Very good.
Most times our convictions are very weak. Like we may decided to do something and it fades away and again we do. But how to actually, because everything is again centered at one point of how to be good in spirituality. So how to make our convictions stronger? Like
stay focused. It's a good question. So one, so a couple of thoughts kind of been discussed here. Is one, we make our goals achievable. So we know where we are, or if we don't know, then our guru knows where we are, and based on that, they give us something that is within our grasp. Like I was saying, it was half joking but also serious. If you make a resolution that I will become a pure devotee, it's not within our grasp to do that, right?
Yes.
And how do we know? How do we act on that resolution? We can't, right? But if you make a resolution that I will chant 4 rounds in the morning as far as possible, right? So important thing about resolution is also flexibility. Like the example that they gave is, and this is in the context of devotees, that instead of saying that I will read 30 pages of Bhagavatam every day, say that I will read 200 pages of Bhagavatam every week. So that gives you some flexibility, because some days you might be busy. One of the biggest reasons people give up on resolutions is because if they are unable to follow it at any point of time, they say, what's the point? You say I'll read 30 pages every day. One day of the week you're very busy at work. You come back late, you're tired, you go to sleep, next day morning you get up, you haven't read any page. And then you say, I've broken my resolution. What's the point? Right? So they give up resolutions. But the way to actually keeping them practical is that give yourself some wriggle room also. Don't say I'll read 30 pages every day. Say that you will read 200 pages in a week. Now these don't apply to your vows, right? You cannot say that over the next 5 days, if you're initiated, you can't say that over the next 5 days I will chant an average 16 rounds, right? Because that's breaking your vow. Or you cannot say that for most of the days I will not have illicit sex, right? You can't have those kind of resolutions. That's a vow. But resolutions are not vows. Vows, there is no latitude over there. But resolution is going over and above, going over and above that. So there, make sure that you package it in a way that you're positioning positioning yourself for success. Right. One way to look at it is that when you make a resolution, think that you're helping a friend of yours make the resolution. Don't make it your resolution. Think that you're going to a friend of yours, and you're helping him make a resolution. So you will obviously help him make a resolution that he will succeed in, right? And then make that your resolution. There. Right. So that's one way of guaranteeing success for yourself. Yeah, that helps.
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know how this point fits in, but suppose it's a fact that if you are told, the person is told, or they make a resolution, whatever, to do something, it's maybe they will do for 40% or so. But if it is spiritual or a religious aspect is given, 95% suppose will follow.
90% will?
Follow it and keep up with it. Like if say, I'm going to do this.
Like you want to be a vegetarian, but then if you say religiously don't eat, then people will follow more. I feel that's what you're trying to
Yeah, or if you are saying I'm doing it for Krishna.
Then
you have some
conviction.
Yeah.
You'll be more committed to it if you have a religious aspect.
Correct. Yeah. I agree.
Just one point I was just thinking. So when we make a new resolution, it's also important to introspect on the resolutions I have done prior. That should not get discontinued. And because some of the resolutions may not be relevant anymore, so we have to kind of introspect because time is limited. And I'm already doing something which is taking, let's say, 4 hours of my time. I do another resolution which will take another 30 minutes or so. It's become difficult. So, making up a new resolution means you have to introspect already the practicality part of it.
Yeah. And the resolution draws on one resource the major resource that the resolution draws on, which we have in limited amount, is willpower. Willpower is the main resource the resolution draws on. So then we have to see if you're using the resource optimally. So going back to the point you're making, that we have so many resolutions that either we are still sustaining by virtue of our willpower, or maybe we are sustaining them but they are not relevant anymore. So we look upon it as as we run our checkbooks. We have some money, we have some expenses. We make sure that we don't spend more than what we make. We have some willpower, we have some resolutions, we make sure that they balance out. So maybe when you make new resolutions, you examine the old ones, see if they're still relevant. Do you still want to keep expending your willpower to them? Maybe you have some resolutions that are, that you don't need anymore. It doesn't mean that you go, you made a resolution that put you into a better place. It doesn't mean that you go back, not like that. But the case in point is, you make a resolution that you would read 30 pages of Bhagavatam. You have read the Bhagavatam, read it a few times. Maybe the resolution now is that I chant 4 extra rounds. You have limited willpower. Where do you spend that energy?
I was reading an article today and they were saying that resolutions are basically habits. You're trying to either have a new habit or so they were saying that few things, but one of them was that sometimes, like what you're saying is that you have to choose between resolutions, but it could be possible that it became a habit now. It's part of your life, so it's no longer a resolution, it's part of what you're already doing as a habit. So now you want a new resolution. And there's a 2-minute rule. And 2 minutes, so every day you figure out a time in your day when you're going to do that activity. So then it becomes a part of it. So you specifically do that, like before drinking tea, you want to read a book or you want to do a puja, whatever you want to do.
So then it becomes, there's an overthinking. So just 2 minutes if you start doing like how you were saying, short term. Whatever is applicable, then you do that.
Start small and think big.
So habits, they were saying that habits you think are difficult, but they're not that difficult to break. If we have the willpower, we can do it. This is called atomic habits by James Clear.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur had this book on, has this book on habits, and he says that like resolution, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but resolutions is about either breaking old habits or establishing new habits.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
Right, we may have old habits that are not good for us, and we may want to cultivate habits that are good for us. And he says that the source of both of them is identifying what you would like. So if you're sincere and you identify, then and of course Bhaktivinoda gives puts the mercy factor strong. He says within 18 months Krishna will give you the energy to either break an old habit or establish a new habit if you're sincere about it. He says it should not take a devotee more than 18 months. I've been trying for 18 years, so so maybe I need more mercy than
Or you have a lot of resolution you're trying to do at the same time.
Okay, so we'll stop here and we'll have kirtan now, right?
2 minutes, I guess, between 20 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Shri Prabhupada.